It turns out the original Spyro trilogy has some plot holes, but the purple boy himself is actually a plot hole. You heard me right. Spyro, the star of his own franchise, is a plot hole. But how is he a plot hole? We will be answering that question, along with how that plot hole could be turned into a plot point that could be used for a future Spyro title or even Spyro 4. Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and I am back with a bit of an interesting video. A lot of games today have deep and enriching storylines, but during the early 90s, there were a lot of video game developers that saw story and lore as afterthoughts during their game's development. Who cares about story and lore? Everyone just wants to see the gameplay. So a lot of game stories were only used to progress the game in a manner that made some sensible sense to the player. A Bandicoot escapes a scientific lab and decides to run all the way back to go save his girlfriend? Sure. A bear has to save his sister from an ugly witch because she thinks she's too pretty? All right. A boy has to help out scientists because monkeys got superpowers from helmets and use a time machine to go back in time and cause a ruckus to the timeline? Why not? Spyro definitely falls victim to this. An angry creature called Nasty Nork got upset that dragons called him ugly, so he cast a spell that turns all the dragons into crystal. The spell missed Spyro because he was so small, and now he's the only one that can save all the dragons. Yep, it's a very typical 90s game storyline. It ain't gonna win any Oscars, and that's okay. But you might be wondering, what plot hole was actually developed here? And to be honest, no, there wasn't any plot holes developed. There were things that weren't explained, but no plot holes really. Like most games released in the 90s, when it's a one-off title, there really isn't that many or no plot holes at all within the game. However, the plot holes start to show up when they decide to make sequels. When we get to the second game, Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, or Gateway to Glimmer for those over the pond, a small plot hole arises. Hunter decides to punch in his birthday as coordinates into the professor's new super portal. When he punches it in, the super portal grants access to a faraway place. Suddenly, Ripto dives through the portal with his minions, Crush and Gulp. When he shows up, he says this.
Where are we? No dragons? Wonderful. Crush, go back and pack my bags. We're moving in.
Now, this is something to note. The very first thing he does when he shows up to a new location or a new world is to check if there's dragons, implying that wherever he came from, dragons were present, and he is very much not a fan of them. However, later on, when Spyro shows up and Ripto sees him for the first time, he says this.
Were you trying to keep something from me? A dragon? You brought a dragon to Avalar? I hate dragons!
Now, this hasn't developed any sort of plot hole yet, but it does when Spyro says this.
Who was that jerk?
Spyro, who came from the Dragon Realms, who saved every dragon from every homeworld, from every clan, has no idea who Ripto is. And likewise, Ripto doesn't even recognize the young savior of dragons, but he knows that he's a dragon. There's more to this plot hole, but in order to fully conceptualize it, we have to move on to the third game, Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon. Now, I have to applaud Insomniac because Spyro 3 was the most lore heavy of all three games. They tried to explain dragon traditions, the origins of dragons, and the effects that they have on the environments around them. However, while doing this, they also made an old, small, passable, unexplained story detail grow into a massive manhole-sized plot hole. Here is the official plot to Spyro 3. Every 12 years, the Dragon Kingdom celebrates its most important event, the Year of the Dragon Festival. Fairies deliver a new batch of dragon eggs, and dragons come from all around to dance and feast until everyone drops from Exhaustion.
Got him!
The Year of the Dragon is upon us again, and the fairies have brought 150 eggs to the dragon worlds. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, there was a place called the Forgotten Realms. In that kingdom, there was an evil sorceress who wanted to bring magic back to her forgotten kingdom, and she believed that stealing all the dragon eggs would bring magic back to her world. So, with the help of Bianca and the Rhinox, she did exactly that. And again, A for effort to Insomniac. We even had a lore plot twist revealing that the Forgotten Realms was actually the origins of the dragons. Additionally, we also found out that when the dragons left the Forgotten Realms, magic literally went with them, and slowly over time, things started to shut down and things started to not work anymore, like the local portals. Even later on, we then were told that it was the sorceress that banished the dragons to the other side of the world, without her knowing that dragons were the source of magic in her so-called kingdom. And if you thought that was wild, we then got one more plot twist that revealed what the baby dragon's actual purpose was for the sorceress.
And I'm going to send it out to destroy all the dragons, even the little hatchlings. Yes, yes! It will smash them and crush them and grind them and tear them! Oh, yes! Smear them and smoosh them and crack them and crease them!
But, won't that kill them?
What did you think I was going to do with all those dragons? Open a zoo?
You never said you had to kill them.
I don't have to kill them. It just stops them from wriggling so much.
Rated E for everyone.
Yeah! Yeah, they went there. They definitely went there. Again, other than the mass genocide of baby dragons, Spyro 3 tries its best to be the most story-driven of the original 3 games. And in doing so, Insomniac made Spyro himself a gigantic plot hole. Let's rewind back to Spyro 1. Let me ask you something. If every 12 years the dragons get a gigantic batch of eggs from the fairies, where is Spyro's 149 other nestmates? Why is he the only young dragon in the game? Because Spyro would have been born during the Year of the Dragon, right? So this is plot hole number 1. Now, let's get back to Ripto. So again, Ripto shows up to Avalar. His first concern is whether or not dragons are present, suggesting that he's been dealing with dragons where he came from. Additionally, when Spyro, the savior of dragons from the Dragon Realms, is brought to Avalar, he does not recognize Ripto, and Ripto doesn't recognize him either, though of course, he knows right away that Spyro is a dragon, because he hates dragons, if you didn't know. Additionally, Ripto was brought to Avalar from a far distant place with the Super Portal, which required many orbs, while Spyro was brought to Glimmer with a regular portal and 2 measly orbs, suggesting that the Dragon Realms is in closer proximity to Avalar, or at least Glimmer, and requires a lot less power. With all this evidence compiled, Ripto and Spyro seemingly did not come from the same world. So how could Ripto even know what a dragon is if he's not from the Dragon Realms? Now, this is actually not quite a plot hole, but it means a lot more than what people initially thought. It means there are other dragons beyond the 5 clans that we know of in the Dragon Realms. Now, I mentioned Spyro 4 at the start of the video, and here is where this comes into play. Sometimes plot holes or unexplained plot holes can be spun into storylines. What was once a plot hole could then be turned into a story element.
Well, you know, I'm sensing a real fraught history here. How many times have you beaten this clown anyway?
3.
Really? Only 3? Funny. Seemed like more.
Spyro 4 can not only address both plot holes, but can actually create an entire story while fixing them. You can also grab details that didn't particularly mean anything at the time when they were said, and then turn them into foreshadowing story points. So here is my pool of story plots from the Spyro original trilogy. Spyro being the only young dragon in the Dragon Clans. The numerous times Spyro is acknowledged as special in the very first game.
Is that you, Spyro? Are you the young dragon I've been hearing so much about? Ever since you were a wee puff of smoke, we've known,
You've known...
I forget.
Ripto coming from a land that has dragons, but is not the dragon realms, along with those dragons causing him problems. The dragons originally being from the Forgotten Realms, but were banished by the sorceress. The ending of Spyro 3, where Gnasty and Ripto discussed the dragon problem, and let's throw in the fact that Spyro seems to be brave and always running headlong into almost any challenge, and let's throw the fact that Spyro is the only one that has a dragonfly. With all these plot points, let's McFlurry the plots into a potential Spyro 4 story arc. Spyro the Dragon is a young dragon who is unique to the Dragon Realms. Sure, he's a dragon, and that's pretty unique enough, but he's not like any of the other dragons either. He sometimes has heard comments about him specifically in passing conversations, but he didn't quite know why. Spyro also did not have any nestmates, as he was the only young dragon among the 5 dragon clans. However, after the events of the Year of the Dragon, and all the eggs were hatched, the door that was hidden behind Artisan's homeworld blows open, revealing a powered-down portal coming to life. A young dragon that Spyro's age collapses through the portal. We learn that this dragon comes from a long-lost dragon clan that was separated when the sorceress banished the dragons. The clan was called the Nomads. Essentially, they were traveling cartographers that never really had a homeworld, charting lands that they would visit, researching and learning everything that they could. And unfortunately, when they got banished, they lost track of where all the other dragon clans went. Recently, Ripto, a troublemaker that caused the Nomads grief in the land that they were researching in the past, had returned, but he brought an ally with him, Gnasty Nork. Gnasty and Ripto formed an alliance and used their magic together to trap the Nomads in Crystal. However, the spell was not like the first time it was used, as it also slowly sapped the trapped dragon of its magical energy. This magical energy was used to power a number of evil machines and creatures. We then learned that the reason why Spyro was so special is because he is a nomad. And years ago, for some reason, Spyro's egg came through the portal from behind Artisan's homeworld. This is why Spyro didn't have any nestmates. This is also why Spyro befriended Sparks, and even though the pairing was odd, the other dragons felt that it would be best to let Spyro have a friend to play with. Spyro also finds out that this new friend who came through the portal would have been his nestmate. So because Spyro knows how to fight Ripto and Gnasty, he decides to join his newfound friend to go and help save the Nomad Dragons and stop Ripto and Gnasty once and for all. This is just a sample idea of a way a story that could be written that fixes previous plot holes. This explains why Spyro was the only young dragon with no nestmates, and Ripto dealing with dragons outside the Dragon Realms. But this idea also takes minor details and polishes them up to become a lot more important when you're looking at the original trilogy as a whole. Additionally, the introduction of the plot point of nomads and the fact that there are other dragons in other places creates a scalable story that can grow into an entire new trilogy. The young dragon that is introduced can also either be a completely original character or a fan favorite character from other Spyro games. Now, I have an entire Spyro 4 game charted out in terms of plot and events, along with collectibles and even mechanics. So if you want to see that video, let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe for all things Crash and Spyro. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video and our live stream. Bye-bye!